Hey there, this is KHADER Electronics Made Easy. So recently my channel crossed 500 subscribers. So on this note, I like to thank each and every one of the subscribers and the people who keep supporting me in making these videos. Thank you one and all. So on this occasion of crossing 500 subscribers, I'm making this special video where I'm going to show you what are the things you'll need to set up an electronic workshop bench. Let's see. So the first thing you'll need to set up an electronic workshop bench is a good multimeter like this one. So usually multimeters come with the following features: AC voltage, DC voltage, resistance, current, continuity, and some may even have capacitance and transistors working. So this one has transistor checking feature. So there are other multimeters available like this cheap Chinese multimeters which don't last even a year. So instead of spending 150 to 200 rupees for these Chinese cheap ones, you can spend about 600 for this multimeter. This is a Mastech multimeter. It says MAS 830L. So you can spend this, and I have been using this for around 3 years and it still works great, and I haven't even changed the battery till now. So you can buy this one or anywhere around 600 for a good multimeter. So the next important thing you'll need to set up an electronic workshop bench is a good power supply like this one. So one of the options you'll have to get a good power supply is buying it from a market, or you can salvage the SMPS from a computer and use that as your lab power supply. But my advice would be make a power supply, because making a power supply, you're actually learning the components and the circuitry of that power supply, and you'll gain knowledge, and at the same time you can add your features. You can custom build it, and like this one, see, I have built it around 2 years before and this works great. This is a 3 amps power supply and this costed me around 1500 to make, and I have added features like there's a fuse here. Of course, most of the power supplies which you buy also get with a fuse. There's a power on off switch. There are 2 controls here. One is a coarse control and one is a fine control. So one is used to control the high range and one is used to control smaller range, like about 2 to 3 volts. And there's a voltmeter here. This is the LED voltmeter I showed you in the video before. And there's a switch here. This toggle switch is used to shift the output voltage from maximum 12 volts to maximum 24 volts. So if you keep it on the top, it's maximum 24 volts. If you keep it down, it's maximum 12 volts. So there are 2 terminals here. The main advantage of building this power supply is, first of all, if you want to buy a power supply in the market, you'll get for around maybe 5,000 or even more sometimes. So building one like this will cost you less money, and at the same time it will also become like a project for you, a weekend project. It can take about 3 days or 4 days for you to build this one. But my advice would be, for beginners, you need not build this big power supply. It's better always you start with a low current power supply like a half amp power supply or a 1 amp power supply, because working with a high current power supply is always dangerous, because there are cases where transistors might get hot and burn your fingers and even burn your circuitry, because if you don't know how to handle a high current circuit, there's always risk that you might damage yourself. So better build a half amp or a 1 amp supply, which might cost you for about say 600 to 1000 rupees. So next thing you'll need are good probes. So I have built these probes with a, I think, 14 gauge copper wire. Not sure what is the gauge of this, but get thicker wires so that you can work with even high currents. If you want to work with higher currents, you need to have thicker wires so that you can charge your batteries with high currents. You can power a big motor, or you can even work with high power amplifiers. So the next thing you'll need is a soldering iron. So for electronic projects, usually you don't need any high power soldering irons. 25 watt one would be enough for you, because you're working with very small components and overheat might damage your component sometimes. So get a 25 watt one, or if possible get a micro soldering station of 10 watt or 5 watt, because it helps you working with smaller components and small soldering points, and it always keeps your circuit neat. So with the soldering iron, you also need a soldering stand so that you can keep your soldering iron on this, because usually I have seen people while working with a soldering iron, they usually keep it on a screwdriver or a metal plate or stuff like that, but it's always harmful. So better buy a ceramic or a metal soldering stand like that. It's always helpful. So with soldering iron and the stand, you'll also need some soldering lead. So better get a lead which has flux inside that. And with this you'll also need a small flux box, because you might think that there's already flux in the solder, but there are cases where you need to apply the flux more so that the contact is better. So get a small flux box. This won't cost much. By the way, the soldering iron costs you about 150 rupees and the stand costs you maybe 50 rupees, so that's 200. And this soldering lead costs you about 30 rupees. I'm not sure about the weight of it, but this will, if you use it a lot, you can use it for more than 2-3 months. This is a lot. And this flux box costs you about 15 rupees, so that's around 245 rupees. Apart from all these devices, you'll also need good protection. So get good pair of gloves like this one. These are cut proof, so even if you want to cut your hand with a blade also, nothing will happen to you if you wear these gloves. So these are always protecting your hand, and they can handle high heat. So get a good pair of gloves. These can cost you anywhere between 300 to 500 rupees. So as I told you about the multimeter, it's very important for you, but it's always advisable to have an extra current meter like this one. It's an ammeter ranging from 0 to 5 amps. This is an analog one. If you have a digital one, it's always good, but I would say that having a discrete meter like this is very helpful, because there are cases you need to measure the voltage on the multimeter and the current also at the same time. So in those cases you can use this ammeter to measure the current and the voltmeter in your multimeter to measure the voltage. There are cases where you need to open things up to inspect the components inside. So in those cases you also need this screwdriver set. So I have this 2 screwdriver set. This is the first one which I bought about 4 years ago. This is the Jackley. It says JK6036A. It has 31 bits and it's good. I have been using it for last 4 years, and it comes with a magnetic holder, and the bits are pretty small, which is a little uncomfortable in times, but it's always helpful because they are around 31 bits, but I hardly use more than 5 to 6 bits from this. So over this Jackley screwdriver, I would advise you get this type of screwdrivers, which has around 3 plus 3, 6 and 7 bits. There are 3 flats screwdriver bits and 3 Phillips screwdriver bits, and there's one poker, I don't know what's this called, to make holes. And there's also an extension bit. Apart from the 7 bits, there's an extension bit which can be used to increase the length of the screwdriver. So I advise this one because there are cases where you don't even use those flower bits or multiple bits which are given in the Jackley one, but this one you can use pretty roughly, and as you can see, you can keep it inside this bit, and if you tighten this screw, it will become tight and hold very tightly. So this is a very good screwdriver. And one more advantage of this screwdriver is that it comes with an internal tester. So if you want to test if there is a main supply coming through a power line or not, you can just keep it into the power supply, insulating yourself properly, then it will show you the LED, indicate with a neon lamp. And as I told, there is an extension for this. You can keep this extension in this, tighten it and keep this here, so it will become a bigger screwdriver. So coming to the components. So while working with electronics, it's always advisable that you have enough component supply with you. So you need not spend thousands and thousands of rupees to buy these components. I would advise you get just a few components, so that in emergency cases, like if you need a 100 ohm resistor but you have only 250 ohm resistor, you can join them in series and get a 100 ohm resistor. That's a simple method to get components when you don't have actual components. So I'll tell a list of components. First of all, get enough resistors. Resistors are always helpful, because in every electronic circuit you'll need resistor, at least to reduce the current or make a voltage divider or amplifying, biasing, anything. You can use a resistor. So get few resistors. So you can take the values like 1 ohm. 1 ohm is always useful to limit the current by little, not much, it won't affect much, but there is always little current limitations. So get a 1 ohm resistor, a 10 ohm resistor, get a 56 ohm resistor, 100 ohm resistor, 330 ohm resistors, 1 kilo ohm. Get 3.3 kilo ohm, because 3.3 kilo ohm is used in amplification processes. Get a 10 kilo ohm. 10 kilo ohm is used for biasing transistors. Get a 22 kilo ohm. Again, it's used in amplifiers to bias the mic. Get a 33 kilo ohm, get a 68 kilo ohm or 56 kilo ohm, somewhere half the way to 100 kilo ohm. Get a 100 kilo ohm, get a 470 kilo ohm, which is used in connecting the output to the input in the amplifiers. Get a 1 mega ohm. 1 mega ohm is used, you might think that 1 mega ohm is too high value, we won't use it, but 1 mega ohm is used in transformerless LED power supplies. It can be used in amplifier biasing and few more circuits. So get a 1 mega ohm. So that's around, I think, 15 resistors I have mentioned. Yeah, 15 resistors. So get 5 of each. So that will be around what, 75. So do one thing, get 10 of each. That will cost you for 150 resistors. Yeah, so 15 into 10, that's 150 resistors. And in the place I live, Visakhapatnam, almost you'll get 3 resistors for 1 rupee. So all these are 1/10 watt one. So that will be around 50 rupees for 150 resistors. So I have enough supply of resistors for just 50 rupees. Next, you should also get few higher wattage resistors. Like you don't need a 1 mega ohm resistor of 1 watt because it's no way useful. Get lower value resistors with higher power, like a 100 ohm resistor of 1 watt. Get a 10 ohm resistor of 1 watt. Get a 56 ohm resistor or something around that value of 1 watt. So like these values, get about 3 or 4 of those, because you won't use much of these high voltage resistors much at your beginners level. So get a few of those. So say that will cost around 20 rupees. So that's the 70 rupees. Next, coming to capacitors, get ceramic capacitors of value say 0.1 microfarad, 0.01 microfarad, 0.001 microfarad. Get all these 3 of the capacitors, at least 2 of each. So coming to the electrolytic capacitors, you need to get 1 microfarad, 10 microfarad, 47 microfarad, 100 microfarad, 470 microfarad and 1000 microfarad. So usually the higher values are used for power supplies, like 1000 microfarad is used for filtering in power supplies. And coming to the 470 microfarad, which is used in amplifiers at the output stage. Coming to the 1 microfarad and the stuff, they can be used in oscillators, they can be used in say 555 time a stable oscillator. Coming to the transistors, it's always advisable you have at least 10 of BC547 or BC548. These are very basic transistors, but they are used in simple circuits, like say I made a water level indicator, I used BC547 in that. Similarly, say a simple amplifier, the first amplifier which you make, most of the people make it with a BC547, at least in India. I'm not sure about the other countries, but in India they use mainly BC547 because it's readily available and it's very cheap. So if I get 10 BC547, it will cost me only 10 rupees, 1 rupee each. So the next transistor I would say is get a BD139 or 135. This is a high power transistor. It can pass a current of about 1.5 amps. So get a BD139 or BD135. One transistor or 2 transistors is more than enough. Get 2N3904. It's a high frequency amplifier. It's used in FM transistors, FM receivers, etc. etc. Get 1 or 2 of that. Get tip series transistors. Tip 132, 131 or 142, 141. So tip series transistors can handle very high current, more than 5 amps to 10 amps. So those transistors can be used in construction inverters. So get 2 of each, like either 132, 131 or 142, 141. I think 141 is PNP transistor and 142 is NPN transistor, something like that. So these transistors can cost you about 100 rupees. Next I'm talking about LEDs. Get enough LEDs because you never will feel that you have excess of LEDs, ever. So get at least 10 of red LEDs, 10 of green LEDs and maybe 5 of white or blue LEDs. That will cost you about, red LEDs might cost you about 1 rupee each piece, and green also 1 rupee each piece, and white LEDs can cost you about 2 rupees per piece. So that will cost you around 30 rupees. Next, coming to higher power LEDs, you can get about 2 or 3 of 1 watt LEDs if you are going to work on torches or lighting systems. Get 1 watt LEDs. 2 or 3 would be enough, each one cost about 5 rupees. So that's around 10 rupees. So total LEDs will cost you only 40 rupees. So at the beginner stage, people usually work with single stranded wire like this one. So get enough supply of this wire. Get at least 10 meters. Each meter might cost you about 3 rupees, and believe me, about 10 meters would supply wire for you for more than few months. So during construction of circuits at the beginners level, we don't actually make the circuits on PCB. We first test it on breadboard. So it's always advisable you get at least 2 breadboards, because there are cases where I work on one project and I need to work on the another project at the same time, or I get bored of the first project and leave it in the half and work on the second project. So I do that. So in those cases, it's always advisable to have two breadboards so that I can work one project on one and another project on another breadboard, because I cannot remove the first circuit every time I want to work on the second project. So get two breadboards, at least two breadboards, and each breadboard can cost you anywhere between 80 to 100 rupees depending on the quality. So two will cost around 200 rupees. So there are cases where you need to bend the terminals or cut the terminals. So in those cases you need to get one of these. This is a small needle nose pliers. This will cost you around 100 to 120 rupees. And this is a very small and portable one. You can carry it anywhere and you can use it in smaller areas. As you can see, the tip is really pointed, so it helps you in bending smaller terminals. So next is the cutter. So don't go to an electronic shop to buy this cutter, because usually my experience is that when I ask this cutter in an electronic shop, it costs about 120 rupees. But when I buy the same cutter in an electrical shop, it costs me around 30 rupees. So my advice would be, go to an electrical shop, ask for a wire cutter, this one. So it will cost you around 30 rupees, and of course it's also a stripper, so you can also strip the wires with this and cut the wires. So apart from having wire cutters and wire strippers or pliers, it's always advisable to have a scissors, because it will help you to cut smaller wires more carefully and compared to the cutters, and also a very sharp blade. Pocket knife would do. So there are cases when you need to open nuts to open a box, then it's always handy to have few wrenches, but you cannot carry multiple wrenches with you if you want to go somewhere or if you want to work. So it's always advisable to have a screw wrench like this one. So this cost me around 100 rupees, and this can handle pretty small nuts and pretty big nuts. So the size can be varied with this screw here. So in few cases I need to remove the insulation of an enameled copper wire, then I need to burn the insulation to scrape that off first. So in those cases I cannot use the matches every single time. So it's handy to have a lighter like this one. So if you're not working in a very well ventilated area, it's always advisable you have a small exhaust fan like this one. This exhaust fan can either remove the foul air in your work area, or it can also supply you with enough breeze when you need it. So get a good one, and this costs you around 150 rupees. So there are cases where I need to carry my tools along with me to some outside area, but I cannot carry these pliers, blades, scissors, etc. with me, because it would look really weird if I have these things in my bag. So in those cases it's always helpful to have a multi-tool like this one, or a simple multi-tool like this. So this just has a blade like this one, a small scissors, a Phillips screwdriver, a flat screwdriver and bottle opener, but this is a cheap one and it's not very comfortable to work with. So this one on the other hand is a very good one. As you can see, it has a pliers, needle nose pliers, it has a blade, two blades actually. It's a big blade and it's a small precision knife. It has a flat screwdriver, a bottle opener. On the other side it has a, I think, a file. It also has a small ruler here, another flat screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver and a can opener. So this is a very handy tool. I carry this with me all the time, and I've been using this for more than a year, I think. Yeah, it's very good, and it cost me around only 200 rupees for this. So if you like to work with microcontrollers, then you can get a small microcontroller kit like an Arduino or Raspberry Pi, or if you are very basic like a beginner level, then you can get one of these 8051 programming boards. This has 8051 all the series and 40 pin and 20 pin programming board. I bought this around 1 year ago. I don't use this much. If you're working with high power LEDs or high power transistors, I also advise you have enough heat sink compounds, heat shrink tubing and also heat sinks, so that you can attach them to the transistors or the high power LEDs which you are working with, and they cause enough heat dissipation and protect your circuit also. And if you can afford, I advise you also buy a CRO, which is very costly actually. It might cost you around 50,000 for a CRO, and also a function generator which might cost you around 20 to 30,000. So around 70,000 for just for a CRO and a function generator. But if you're not interested in working with audio signals or signal level electronics, then it's better you avoid this CRO and function generator, because you might not be using them much in your circuitry. And one more thing you need to have is this insulation tape. So this is a masking tape. This is a cello tape which you might not use in electronics, but having a masking tape or an insulation tape is really important, because you need to cover all the joints before sealing the device or sealing the prototype, so that there are no short circuits and your circuit doesn't get damaged. So these are the things you need to have mostly. Apart from this, you can have potentiometers, relays, triacs. If you're working with a main supply, you always need to have relays and triacs. So boxes, enough project boxes, so that you can conceal all the circuit inside a box and make it a little compact. But if you're like me, you can make your own boxes either from wood or plastic or even cardboard. Cardboard is more simple to use. And if possible, have few rechargeable batteries. So if there is a power outage, you can always work with the batteries, which is more simpler. And if there is no sockets available to you close to your bench, then it's better to have a extension box with a fuse, so that if you accidentally short the terminals, then the fuse will protect your house wiring. And apart from all these, the few more things you'll need are a bench, a good bench. Prefer a wooden bench, so that you don't accidentally get shocked or you don't accidentally short the circuit. You also need to wear good quality slippers, so that you don't get shocked if you're working with main supply and accidentally touch the terminals. So as you can see that all these components cost you under 5,000, actually not even 5,000, less than 4,000. So you can set up an electronic bench, a complete electronic bench, just by using 4,000 if I don't include the CRO and the function generator. So that's all for today. Once again, thank you all of you and Happy New Year. I'll meet you in my next video. Thank you.